Inazuma has finally arrived. We're all eager to explore the island chain, and I'd imagine some of us have already done so completely. The first thing I did after arriving, which was a few days after the release due to trying to get there without the quest, was immediately begin a tour of the world beneath Inazuma. We're all well aware at this point that Teyvat is flat, at least from our perspective. Below the surface is a strange world, one generally empty and devoid of life, but not one without some interesting sights. So, without further ado, let's take a tour of the wonderful world beneath Inazuma, and while we're at it, see how some of the areas look if you enter them before you're supposed to. Of the areas available to explore, the most notable would have to be the ruins on the ocean floor to the east of Inazuma. These were a bit tricky to reach. If we attempt from too high, we're pulled to the surface. But there's just enough room that we can glide there from the mainland. What looks like an open area suddenly transforms into a labyrinthine ruin as we draw near. The domain can be seen out here, but like all other inactive domains, it cannot be entered. Domains like this are locked behind a specific criterion being met. So from outside, how do we get inside? Circling around, if we jump near this corner, we'll be pulled by the water above and dropped inside. It's just a short trip around the other corner, and then we can climb out through this boat. It's a one-way trip, as we clip through the wall. The strangest thing about these ruins has to be the barrier around the perpetual mechanical array. It surrounds the boss like a cube, though the floor seems to be missing this barrier, which means we can clip into it from the outside. This is yet another new type of barrier in the game. Has this wavy animation if we get near it, almost like it's gelatin. Unlike terrain, this barrier does not obstruct the camera. Xiao is doing something? It's almost like she's digging for something, kinda? Seen a bunch of weird climbing animations, but this one might take the crown. Dropping onto it puts our character into a never-ending fall animation, one that cannot be escaped without using the map to teleport away. And they'll bounce around the area, carried by whatever momentum they had when they fell onto it. Plunge attacks instead get stuck once they hit a wall. To wrap this area up, we can break into the domain's room without lifting the gate and unlock the domain. Just a neat little extra. South of these ruins is another underwater cave. It's accessible in the same fashion as these ruins, although it's only because of this ginormous water plane that we can reach it. All of this water is the reason you splash through a tiny stream in the cave itself. It's not uncommon for games to have water planes extend beyond the map, but it sure is a lot of extra. Very similar to the setup around Dunyu Ruins. From here, we can kaya into the cavern. I checked into it, and this spot is the starting point if doing the cavern normally. Nothing is really different, except Paimon doesn't say anything, and we can't purify the area. Following the Sealy all the way up will dispel the barrier around this place. Before we move west, let's take a look to the north, where the other side of the giant undersea trench lies. In a past video, we covered attempting to cross this. It ended in failure, but others have found new methods that do work, of which the most consistent of has to do with lag switching. From the Inazuma side, we can see just how deep the trench really is with this cliff that connects to the bottom. Alrighty, westward we go. Shinju Forest may just be the prettiest out-of-bounds location in the game, so let's just take a moment to soak it all in before we move on to the Grand Narukumi Shrine. Looks like we can just glide on over there and pop through the— never mind. We can still get in by climbing through the opening towards the top. I'm not familiar with what's supposed to be happening in this place. It seems entirely closed off and nothing triggered upon entering. Climbing to the top, and in a maneuver reminiscent of the climb from the Dunyu Ruins exploration, we're able to nab this Electroculus and move westward once more. All the way to Konda Village. The well dungeon is a neat little area I found out about only after being sucked into it from outside the map. Didn't think much about it at first until Paimon started talking about things that made no sense. Apparently, this questline has triggers that can be activated even when it's not started. We don't get any notifications in the quest menu about it, but Paimon is clearly talking about the quest and even urges us to use an item we don't have in the final room. It's peculiar, and in all my roaming around out of bounds, I can't recall another time this has happened. The other cool thing about the well is this gate, or rather the spot below it that looks an awful lot like a crawl space, because it totally is, at least when entered from the other side. Through the floor, we can even pocket the keys. I think it's time we move on to the next island, although that's not possible from out here. The further west one moves on Inazuma's eastern island, the more difficult it becomes to travel beneath the map. The terrain we can latch onto becomes incredibly short, and shallow water is present just about everywhere that will pull us to the surface. And perhaps you've noticed, but there's no ocean floor around Inazuma. The trench to the far north, which isn't even attached to the mainland, and the bit to the east near the ruins is all we get. All else is an empty void beneath the waves, so an entry point is needed on each island. Only a few things to see on the middle island. First, the devs seem to have considered the possibility that someone would try tunneling beneath the barrier. The second is this water that isn't actually water. It very much looks like the electrocharged water we see elsewhere in Inazuma, such as around the shrine, but nope, fall right on through it. And now for the western island. How the Resistance is managing to make do on an island ravaged every few seconds by lightning strikes, who knows? We can't even have a conversation without the traveler being smited every other line of dialogue.
Let me show you around some other.
The Shogun's really not happy about those antics we got up to in her little void arena, huh? Luckily, the storm doesn't present much of an obstacle while traveling in the world below. Lightning may be able to reach the bottom of the ocean, but it would seem Earth is something it has yet to break through. One of the most interesting things is this filter near the Statue of the Seven. Can't figure out exactly why it is here, but it makes everything pixelated. My best guess is that it might be something for lighting or reflections with a waterfall that's directly above. Oh my gosh, Barbara, no! This island is home to a skybox change, and I don't mean the storms. Similar to those we covered in the boss's skybox video, the Musaujin Gorge turns the world purple and applies a gradient effect to our character. As one may guess, it makes traversing this particular area that much more difficult, especially with water nearby. We can reach the locked domain, but like the previous one, it cannot be accessed. Sorry pal, this is about as good as it gets with entering this domain without stopping the storm. Although, the torches can be briefly lit with Amber's charge shot immediately after Noelle's shield breaks. On the note of stopping the storm, there's one area we've yet to cover, this water vortex bubble shield thing. There are a few of these, but this one is the most complex of the bunch given its location. Pearl extracted. Was there ever any doubt? One step at a time, we're doing the Shogun's bidding and preserving Inazuma's eternity, keeping it exactly the way we found it. Except that one island to the east, I really shouldn't have let that Sealy go all the way to the top. This is Musashi, signing off. Till next time.